We should always think about how we can protect our Veeam data file from ransomware attack. And this is one of the most concern for network admins. How can I at least protect my Veeam backup data file from ransomware? In today's lesson, we're going to cover some key points to protect your server from ransomware attack. And in next lesson, I'm going to separate Veeam zone from a production environment. So before I go any further, I should mention this lesson is not talking about protecting your network from ransomware. It's only protecting your Veeam server from ransomware. So we're going to talk about how we can protect our Veeam server from ransomware attack. First, you should never join your Veeam backup server to Active Directory. The question then arises, why? Because hackers are looking for your domain admin credentials. They know by accessing your domain admin credential, they can encrypt more server instead of trying to hack a standalone server. I mean the server not joined to a domain. So again, first and highly recommended, your Veeam server should not be joined to a domain server. Keep in mind that. Second, you should separate your Veeam server from your network by adding another NIC or network interface card to your Veeam server, and also you should add a new VMware vSwitch to separate traffic. And lastly is the best practice to use firewall between these separated network and your production environment. This design will help you to actually protect your Veeam server from ransomware attack. So let's jump right to clarify it in our diagram. So as you can see, here is our diagram. The red line is actually for our separated network. So we have production network, I mean the black line here, with the IP 192.168.1.0/24, as we use it in our Veeam lab. And this production environment, it was vSwitch 0 in our vcsa.lab.local. So we need to add another vSwitch, which we call it vSwitch 1 for separated Veeam zone, and with the new IP address here. And in our VM workstation for VMnet 0, which is refers to vSwitch 0 of VMware vSphere, we need to add another VM network, which is going to be VMnet 2. And we point this VMnet 2 in our VMware workstation to VMware vSphere for vSwitch 1. Next lesson, I'm going to add this VM network in VMware workstation and in VMware vSphere. Don't worry how you can add it in your production environment. I will teach you step by step how you can do it. So great. And here in your production environment, you have, for example, this mail server or something like this DC server that actually hosted by these ESXi's. That's okay. So for your production environment, you have vSwitch 0 pointed to your network interface card here. So we need another vSwitch here, the red line, which is going to be physical network interface card of these servers, and we'll add them to vSwitch 1. So for production, we have vSwitch 0, and for separated zone, vSwitch 1, which is going to be the red line. Red line here means VLAN. And in your production environment, we will make new VLAN, 1 port, 2 port, and 3 port. Let's call it VLAN 2. So we'll disconnect this Veeam server from production environment and add it to the new VLAN with the new IP address, something like 192.168.220, which it was 192.168.120 in our production environment. That's okay. We'll disconnect it from our production environment and we'll add it to the new VLAN. And this physical interface we already added to the vSwitch 1, and all of them should connect it to this VLAN. This port to this VLAN and to this VLAN. And this is not routable VLAN. Of course, it can be a routable if you have firewall between them. But if you don't, I strongly recommend you that you make it layer 2 VLAN. You should never assign IP to this VLAN. It's a better idea to leave it layer 2 VLAN. Layer 3 VLAN is the VLAN that is assigned by IP address. It means all the network can reach that VLAN. Of course, you can deny access to that VLAN by access list. So as you can see, after we added vSwitch 1 and we'll add this network interface card, physical card I mean, by each server, this infrastructure, I mean Veeam backup server and ESXi1 and ESXi2, or of course VCSA, they would have second IP address and they can ping each other with the new IP address. That means in Veeam backup server, we should add a new IP address, which refers to VLAN 2, with this VLAN for VM separated zone. So as you can see, here are the steps that you can do to separate your Veeam traffic from your production environment. First, you should add another vSwitch to a new VLAN, and we'll add Veeam backup server to the new VLAN to accessing this ESXi with new IP address, which is going to be VLAN 2 and separated traffic. And actually, if you want to access this VLAN, I strongly recommend you that you use firewall. Otherwise, leave it as VLAN layer 2. So we discussed about how we can make our Veeam server protected from ransomware attack by making some simple changes, and of course by not joining our Veeam backup server to domain service. And keep in mind that in this diagram, which I'm going to demonstrate it step by step in next lesson, you cannot have your application aware processing and file indexing. Because after designing this structure, Veeam backup cannot access your virtual machine. And of course, virtual machine cannot access your Veeam backup server. And you know that for using application aware processing and file indexing, Veeam backup should reach your virtual servers here. So maybe again the question then arises, how we can use application aware processing and file indexing by this design? Actually, you can't. By this structure, you cannot use application-aware processing and file indexing. I strongly recommend you that you use a second Veeam backup server in your production network. You can add this Veeam server to your production environment and take a benefit of using application-aware processing and file indexing. And again, I highly recommend you that never join this new Veeam backup server to a domain. And lastly, I highly recommend you that at least you have 2 VM servers in your production environment, not only one. And you can easily import this data file here to your separated zone. And of course, here you can copy the data to your new server in case of damaging your Veeam server or maybe this one. So thanks for watching this lesson.